justice, social justice, freedom has to be a part of Black comics in particular in representing the urban landscape. So any or all of those three, and anyone who wants to talk about that.
Yes to the last. Yes to that last question. It has to be a part.
Yes. You know, I had this conversation with someone the other day, and ultimately it's the person's choice, right? So, but I think for me personally, I think if you have the wisdom, then you have to exercise it. Then what's the point, you know, if you don't? It's vital to me. I think it's of the most high importance. If you have a power, to utilize your power, that's giving back, and the universe will reward you for that. And it just becomes a cycle where you'll be supported continuously if you're giving back. And you don't have to go to the schools. You don't have to, you know, go and talk to the youth and volunteer, whatever. If you're simply putting some of these concepts into their hands, you're doing the work, and I think the work is important.
When I think about this question, I wrestle with this question quite a bit. It's this constant tension between, you know, form and content, inside of C content, outside of C form, and it's one of the tensions that I think hip hop and comics have experienced as far as like how the form is actually sold. Can I say something else?
Don't get
I think too, it's like when we talk about mainstream comics, that's a really generous term actually, because when you look at something like a company like Marvel and DC, they're not comic book companies actually. They're like multinational, multimedia companies, right? And that's awesome to try to go to that space and try to make something like that. But as a comics creator of color, you know, I want to use that space as a space of resistance. I want to create spaces where our stories are echoing through for future generations. You know, and I think that it is an extremely political act to position yourself as subject, or position yourself as having the agency to create those types of narratives. And I think I agree with you. I think it's vital, and I just can't see myself not making those types of narratives that are directly dealing with those issues. That's my personal take on it.
What I love about the comic form is I think that that it's a self-defined kind of epistemology that demands that we rise up to learn the discursive, you know, kind of practices of that world, right? So we have to get fluent in the world that it creates for us. And I think that it opens up opportunities to create different types of conversations because they're germane to the world's created, right? So the more you're fluent in the language of that world, the more you can accept the possibilities of what that world gives you. So I think the dynamic conversations that are happening about gender relationships and blockheads that are also happening concrete, you know, that maybe these are conversations that we can have on the page that can prep audiences for having them outside when it jumps off into the community. Because they can say, oh, this happened like this character, or does they have some type of tangible form to make those conversations legible in a way that they can translate to the communities that they take that information to. And I think that is really important because the comics are allowing us to redraw boundaries around gender in different ways, to kind of stretch them, expand them, explode them, because they have the fantasy to do it on the page. And we'll end up adapting from a lot of this in our everyday worlds. So that's pretty exciting stuff to think about. And this is part of like African American studies, right? I mean, you know, Frederick Douglass, you know, is a self-authorizing subject, right? As he's writing himself into the being that he's walking into becoming, right? And so coming from a rich history of autobiography, the auto is always already writing the community, even though the self is always doing that work as a representative or a metonymy for the community. So that becomes pretty powerful to think about who does Black stand in for, right? Like in interesting ways.
And I do want to make sure we talk about gender and sexuality, especially in the work that both of you are doing in terms of this very strong character, but also in Blokhedz, in in terms of what kind of character or how you envision that. And because I know so many young women who are really very much into anime and to comics who are looking for themselves in some way. And I wonder how you approach that and think about those things as well within the whole political realm and social realm.
You know, we argue about it a lot. You know, I like to say that it's not because we disagree. It's because we're trying to figure that out ourselves. How does it look? I mean, you're obviously trying to make a comic book, and our girl they don't have much on. And I'm always saying, hey, what's with that? And Tony's drawing what he likes, you know, and we argue about it. Big booties, titty, it's all there. You know, a lot of people who are in making these types of, having these types of conversations in comics, they're lunatics, by the way. I say grimy, but we have a lot of lunatics in the business. It's not all good. A lot of it is really conversations made by mad people, you know, and you look at their art and you go, oh, that's cool, and then you start to read it and you say, ooh. You know, it's very confusing, and I think that right now gender identity and that type of thing falls underneath that. That for a very long time, and Mike was saying this about patriarchal, you know, the authority that brought under were that women were objectified, all of that. And in a way, not in a way, I certainly understand it. I feel like I'm a very strong woman, and I think that also to have a really great bra on and show yourself is also strength. You know, Gloria Steinem, you know, yeah, do it. But but it's not necessarily adding much difference. But there's a lot of great women creators. There's a lot of men who are reevaluating what they're doing because they've been influenced by their grandmothers and their aunts and their sisters, and they're thinking about their children and their daughters, and they're wondering if they're really representing identity and gender identities. And of course now we're into gay rights and a lot of other things that we've been pushed under the rug and seen as being not only other but bad, evil. That's coming out. So I think that we are trying to find our way.
I just want to say something about something relates to something John said. I think to write from inside people of color, to give them agency, to make them subjects in their own stories, to make them the heroes of their own stories, this is the job. We have men, women, we have shapeshifters who are both. We just had a story about a guy who won the beauty contest on our planet as like Miss October. He just loves going as a woman. That's his thing. He's an alien, and he chooses that identity. But if you do your job right, I hope you're doing it from inside interesting people, and you're making fiction where people want to turn the pages because you haven't written them as objects, you've written them as the subjects of their own stories. This is our attempt. We have a lot of people on